They're gonna build themselves into this and get stuck. Kitt, what are you doing? Kitt, this is not how you built a 3,000 tile map, 3,000 cycles, and you can't even build a wall right.
Got me now?
I hear you now. Welcome, everyone. Everyone, give Kitt a big round of applause. Welcome, Kitt1982 to the stream. Welcome, Kitt. Let's talk about this thing real quick, shall we? So, first of all, like, yeah, welcome. Thank you for sharing your save file. It's like, I've looked through it a little bit. I haven't looked at it since you gave the new save file today, so I know some things have changed since the last time we talked about it. But so like just from a high level, how did you get to this point in time with your game? Like, most people start the map, they may or may not have an objective. So like, did you start with an objective, or did you just kind of like get to this point in time and you just said, well, objective A is done, and then you just made up new ones along the way? Like, what is your approach to playing this game?
It sort of depends on the map. Sometimes I start a map and I have a specific thing I want to do, and sometimes I just start a map to see where it goes. This one actually, the map before this one, my goal was to see how many dupes I could support. And about halfway through that map, I realized that it's theoretically infinite as long as your computer can handle running them. So then I wanted to think of something else to do with the map that was interesting in late game. So with this map, my original goal when I started running it was to completely cover the surface of the asteroid with rockets. And I got about halfway there. I've got, I think it's 8 rockets running continuously, but it turns out that you get rather challenged for rocket fuel once you hit about 5 rockets.
Yep.
So I don't think I can, on top of which, you can actually deplete all of the useful asteroids with 8 rockets. So there's not really a point in running more than that. So I sort of, once I realized that I was going to be able to deplete everything that I wanted with, at the time I was depleting all the ones I could reach with 5 rockets, I sort of gave up on that goal. But then I wanted to build the oil boiler, so that was the new goal, because I'd never built one before. So I designed my own oil boiler, and after I got that working, I went on YouTube and found a better design and built that. Once I finished that,
yeah, go ahead.
Once I finished that, I decided that I wanted to try and run a map where all of the resources were perfectly balanced and everything was used for something. So that's what I'm working on now.
They're trying to balance the entire map, and we've listened to you periodically in chat, like, and some of the struggles you've had with that. For those people that have not been a part of our community, or maybe are new or weren't here when we were discussing some of those things during the stream, what are some of those problems in trying to make a balanced map? And I think that that's an important thing to bring up, because a lot of I think that the DLC, and you might agree with me or disagree, I think the DLC, in talking about trying to support multiple asteroids in the future, is kind of require us to build balanced bases, because you're gonna have to leave an asteroid and go work on another map. And we don't really know yet what the switching capability is between those different asteroids. So that's my speculation anyway. I don't know, and I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I'm also assuming that the DLC will require very stable bases that can run without you for a while. I think that would be more interesting than if they just paused themselves. So I'm sort of hoping that's what they do.
Yeah.
But when I first started trying to balance this, one of the things that I really focused on was trying to find something useful to do with a lot of things that didn't seem particularly useful. There are still some resources that are just building up, and I don't know what to do with them. And the worst of those are the data banks that come back with the rockets, because I still have a couple of rockets going with research modules so that I can get the the neural vacillator recharges, because you have to have a research module on to get the vacillator recharge.
Right.
Only if you have a research module on, it gets you data banks. So I now have I think it's 30,000 data banks or something, and you can't do anything with them. You can't melt them. You can't do for anything. They just sit there building up.
Yep.
But so that's, I'm making lots of insulation, because the only thing you can do with Abyssalite is making insulation. So I've just got a continuous insulation craft going. And that's actually what all of my rockets are doing right now, is they're all going to get iso resin from every planet that has iso resin.
All right, let's take a look at your star map. So you have, oh boy. Okay, so we have, interesting. I like your names. All right, so 140,000 K iso resin rocket, a temp 150. You have a temporary 150K rocket. Several others. A Paku. Are you shipping Paku back and forth?
I'm retrieving Paku from a terrestrial planet. You get 4 Paku per cargo pod, and so I can run 2 on a hydrogen rocket. I can get 2 cargo pods to that planet, so I get 8 Paku per trip.
Nice. That's cool.
I'm actually retrieving the Paku not for the food source. I'm doing it for their shells, because I am I'm making a lot of steel.
That's crazy. I love this. So, and I guess we kind of missed it, but you were coming up with creative ideas for some of the things that you needed to do in order to make a balanced base. What are some examples of that so that people can understand? Trying to make a balanced base. I know your oxygen problem has been an interesting topic over the last few weeks. It's
yeah, oxygen's gone weirdly back and forth. I started out with way too much of it, because the only way to get hydrogen for rocket fuel is from the electrolyzer. So I was making just miles more oxygen than I had at one point. I had 1,300 kilograms per tile in a container that was basically 200 tiles. And so I had so much oxygen that's where the long hair slickster farms came from. And then I got so many long hair slickster farms established and took so many dupes that I actually ate up all of my excess oxygen, and now I have too much hydrogen because I'm now producing oxygen to keep everybody breathing. So then I built more rockets at that point to use up some of the hydrogen, which has not entirely solved the problem. But now I'm actually discovering a water problem.
Yeah.
Because feeding 44 dupes and 45 long hair slicksters takes a lot of water. And that's actually the biggest challenge. That's sort of a challenge I'm struggling with a little bit right now, because it's getting it balanced. I had not enough polluted water for my food, so I stopped recycling my base water. And when I stopped recycling my base water, I started running out of water for farms and oxygen. And so I've now turned on the recycler again. Only now I'm worried that I won't have enough polluted water for the farms. So I'm sort of going back and forth on how I can even that out.
That's crazy. And we're just looking at your sour gas boiler, and this is a work of art.
This is my favorite build in the whole base, is this sour gas boiler. And I have to show you something cool about it. If you look in the pump room, you'll see that there's a Atmos sensor and there's a timer sensor.
Okay.
So the Atmos sensor is connected to a notifier. And that's my emergency, oh my God, your base is running out of power sensor. Because my base uses so much power that if the sour gas boiler shuts off, everything shuts down, and there's literally nothing you can do about it. But the Atmos sensor, the highest number it can trigger at is 20 kilograms per tile. And if I get down to 20 kilograms per tile, it is already guaranteed that the boiler will run out of power and shut down. Because I use so much power so quickly that even if I fix the problem immediately, I'm still going to use up all the gas before the boiler can produce more.
Right.
So in order to try and avoid that, I have the timer sensor, so instead of triggering oil supply based on how much gas I have available, I turn the oil supply on for 6 cycles and off for 4 cycles because I don't need it 100% of the time right now. I'm not using the boiler at its full capacity. But so right now I just check on it every now and then. But I do have an emergency system for in case the notification triggers and I know I'm about to run out of power. If you scroll up a little bit, you can see my emergency system.
How far?
It's just a little up on, there it is. It's right there. It's those coal generators.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay.
If you check the automation layer, you can actually see some automation wires running to the sides. And if you flip that switch right next to the coal generators, it cuts the power to everything on the map except the sour gas boiler. Using power cutoffs. So that switch is basically to turn off all power consumption on the map so that the coal generators can get the boiler up and running again.
So why even, I mean, I if it was me, I probably would have done the same thing and put a switch in here. But why not just take it a step further and hook it up to this notifier or like down here and let it fall back? You know what I mean? Like, could you actually have an automated fallback system without the manual step?
I could, but I need the notifier in case the boiler has actually broken. It's only done that twice in this map, and not for several hundred cycles now. But I need to have to come down and fix it. So.
Right. It's too bad that this just turned off. So.
You can turn it back on if you want. Just click on the timer sensor and hit reset.
It's off for 4 cycles? Yeah, okay. Yeah. That's all right. We'll come back to it. It'll turn back on. It'll probably be running when we get here. I'll speed the game up a little bit.
The worst case scenario, if you just start it up again now, is that I get more gas in my reserve. So it doesn't hurt anything to do that.
So for those of you in chat, is everybody familiar with how this sour gas boiler is actually functioning, like from a like all of the physics involved in what's happening here? Like I know there's a couple people that probably don't, but there's two dynamics in here that are at play. One, the crude oil is falling and it's warming up and it's turning into petroleum, and eventually it gets overheated and it turns into sour gas. But the other thing about this is that the tiles are positioned in such a way that as that fluid is dripping, it's also pushing the sour gas back up and cooling the sour gas back down to the temperature of the crude oil that's at the top of the room. That's my what I would assume is happening, Kit, if I read between the lines here. Yeah.
Yes, you understand correctly.
Yeah, that is a work of art. Nice. All right, cool. So
it is slightly modified from the original design because in the design I got off of YouTube for this boiler, there was actually no cooling in the pump room.
Okay.
It just stayed at, I think, around 200 degrees. But when I got this thing up and running, my pump room overheated, even though everything was made out of steel. I don't know what the difference was, that mine was hotter, but that's why the turbines are there. They're actually running a cooling system through the metal tile in the pump room so that it doesn't overheat.
Oh, that's funny. Nice. Cool. What else you got to show us? You have some natural gas generators over here. That's pretty impressive.
Yes. If you scroll over, there's 77 of them. And I'm also running 6 coal gens just because I've got hatches eating extra materials, so those are just to consume the coal. Nice. But if you go on the power overlay, you can see that this is actually separated into 2 power networks. It was originally just one network, but then I overloaded the heavy watt wire, so I had to split it up.
Hey, what's up, Moonlight76? Good to see you. For everybody who's joining us, we're taking a look at Kitt1982's base, who's on Discord right now, and we're having a discussion about it. So if you have questions, feel free to ask. Where is your split? I'm looking for it, and it's not. Oh, I see. The top half goes up, and the bottom half goes down. That's crazy. That's that's awesome. Actually, I love it.
It was both more difficult and easier than I expected to split them up. I only really had to run about half the width of the map of new heavy watt line. Which really surprised me. I thought it was going to be harder.
So how do you know? Do you have a sensor by chance on one of these power lines, or do you have a general idea of how much power each half of the network is consuming?
Half is around 20 kilowatts, but it spikes up higher depending on what's running. So.
Nice. So shall we talk about the hatch in the room?
Literally the hatch in the room, or metaphorically the hatch in the room?
Let's tell us about the hatch issue that you ran into. You were and explain what you're doing with your long-haired slicksters. I need to find them. They're here somewhere.
Hatch issue that I ran into. Oh, it's the hatch issue I had was actually just me not having a whole lot of experience with hatches, because I set them up to make coal because I had like 200 tons of granite or something, and I wanted to get rid of some of it, and I didn't realize that regular hatches couldn't eat granite and that stone hatches couldn't eat sandstone, so I had a little issue with them starving for a while. But I got them sorted out eventually.
Nice. And is this the base that you were? Maybe I'm thinking of Koopy 47. But was this the base that you were trying to use long-haired slicksters to decompose into?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
In fact, all of the meat produced by all of my animals gets decomposed into polluted dirt for my poke shells, I needed for the sand. I now have an excess of sand, but at the time I needed sand. So if you hit the shipping overlay, you can see my truly insane shipping lines. There are a lot of them.
I see that. Let's see if we can find it. So I'm guessing these sweepers are picking up the meat?
The sweepers there pick up both the meat and the poke shell molts. The poke shell molts get delivered to the rock crusher to be turned into lime, and the meat goes up into the rotting room, which is that little square of polluted water in with the long hair slicksters is the rotting room, and all of the automation picks up meat and puts it on the meat line to go be rotted.
Oh, this is hilarious. And what made you come up with this solution? Why did you have to ruin all of the meat in the game?
Well, I mean, I needed sand from the poke. Okay, actually, I didn't need sand at the time. What I needed was the poke shell molts for the lime to make steel. So I needed a poke shell farm to get the molts, and I needed polluted dirt to feed the poke shells. And at the time, I had 1,300 kilograms per tile of oxygen saved up. So I figured I'll feed the oxygen to animals that I can farm so that I can use the meat from the animals to make the polluted dirt for the poke shells, because nothing else on my map at the time was making polluted dirt. I eventually set up 4 ethanol distillers, which make polluted dirt, but even they don't make enough. Like, my poke shells are actually, they're not fully fed. They don't starve, but they're not eating at capacity either. So even rotting the meat from, I think it was over 1,000 critters between wild and domestic, even that does not feed the poke shells of 2 farms.
That's amazing. Nolan Beth is asking, what base asteroid is this? This is the Badlands, Nolan Beth. And then he's also asking, if all of the meat rots, how are you feeding your duplicants?
The duplicants are all eating pepper bread and spicy tofu. So if you scroll up a little bit, you can see my farms. They're just above yeah, there they are. So I've got a reed farm, a bomb lily farm for the phosphorite. Then there's a sleet wheat farm, which is actually getting decommissioned. That sleet wheat farm's days are numbered. And the tree farm for the ethanol distillers, and then 2 nosh bean farms. And I left a gap because I wanted space for a 3rd nosh bean farm, because that's what I'm going to swap out the sleet wheat for. But above that are my pinch of pepper plant farms. And there are 2 of them, but one of them is actually shut down because it was consuming too much polluted water.
Interesting. Nice. Yeah, I know, right? Nolan Beth, it is very impressive.
And all of the food is delivered by sweepers automatically to the base, so the dupes don't have to come and collect it.
That's great. So the only thing the duplicants are really doing are any type of, well, I guess it doesn't look like you are setting up the farm stations, so they're not even doing the nourishment on the tiles to speed them up, right?
Yeah, the farm stations are not set up. They might be eventually, because like I mentioned, I'm having a water issue, so I might need the efficiency. But and I had to turn on dupe harvest for the pinch of pepper plants in order to reduce the amount of polluted water that the current farm produces.
That's awesome. What is the huge statue? The huge statue, Moonlight 76, is one of the, if you do the research for it, you can actually build your own monument in the game. And you can pick the type of head that I'm gonna modify your statue, I'm sorry. you can pick the, all the different pieces for the statue after you've built it. And it's actually a win condition as well.
My monument was originally in a different place. I actually moved it so that I could have a nice cemetery for the 2 dupes who gave their lives for the colony.
Oh, nice. Oh, like I see them.
And I put long hair slicksters in the cemetery so that they could have the company of our base mascots.
Oh, see it? Yeah, I like your style. I'm the same way. Like, I usually try to capture their tears, kind of like in Harry Potter, and capture their memories forever. All right, sweet. Well, chat, like, we have a rare opportunity to ask all kinds of crazy questions here. What kind of questions do you have? I'm kind of curious to see what you guys want to talk about. If we want to break down one of these systems, we can totally take the time to do that. Kit, I don't know how much time you have, but
I've got till 3 o'clock, so I got 30 more minutes.
Okay, cool. What kind of like designs and things inspire you when either creating something new or just like, you know, if you're just looking for inspiration? Like, what are your sources of inspiration in the game in general?
Generally, I like the fancier, more complex builds. So the more difficult it is to do, the more I want to try and solve that problem. I had an oil boiler before we had high temperature buildings, which was a really fun challenge. Basically, if you're sitting there thinking, I'm not sure if that's possible to do, that's what I want to try and do in the game. I see we got a few questions in chat.
Yeah.
Spoonwood, yeah, I crushed all the fossil. I think there's 1 or 2 pockets on the map that I could still dig up, but almost all of it I've crushed. And you also get fossil from some of the planets that you can send rockets to, and I use all of that as well. But it's still not enough for the steel that I'm making, so I also have a lot of shells. Nolan, it's pretty organic. I try and plan things ahead of time, but frequently I plan something, I put it down, I run with it for 500 cycles, and then I realize that there's a better way to do it, so I take it all apart and redo it. The only thing that hasn't been redone like that is the sour gas boiler. Once I set it up, it was permanent. That thing can't be moved. In Mighty Stoosh, in terms of my background, I did an undergraduate degree in geology, but most of my work experience is actually editing and management. So I have very little engineering and math background. I know ONI mechanics and not so much real world mechanics.
Nice.
Lewis, I got rid of all of the water infinite storages, so you can see the relics of the when I was opening the one water one, and I had the water chimney to get it to space. There's some relics of it on the map, but actually, if we go back down to where the sour gas boiler is, the remnants of my oil explosion are down there. Because when I opened the oil infinite storage, I made a little engineering error, and oil went everywhere. And you can see here, it's about halfway down now, but at the time, I had to build a wall of doors in line with the edge of the natural gas generator room, and the top row of mesh tiles was solid, and everything on that bottom left corner of the map was overpressurized to 1,200 kilograms a tile of oil.
Yep, we've been there.
And I pumped it, I built all these storages and pumped the oil into them to get it unpressurized, but I had to leave, the wall of doors was about half again as tall. I had to leave the wall of doors in until the boiler actually used up enough of it that I could take out the top part of the wall so dupes could move through there again.
Did you lose all your power transformers down here when they went underneath the oil?
Briefly, fortunately this particular wall of doors was actually originally solid. It was natural tile, so it didn't break. It was thick enough it didn't break. I put the wall of doors in and dug out the natural tile so that the oil level would drop.
Nice. Barney is asking, what is the most intricate thing on the map?
Definitely the sour gas boiler. Yeah. Well, the sour gas boiler is the most complex build. It is arguable that the most intricate thing is actually my polluted water piping. If you go up to the set of turbines that are cooling my farms and then scroll a little bit to the left, there is a polluted water exchange, which is very complicated and which I'm quite proud of. Oh, a little too high.
I got distracted.
Down a little.
Okay.
Down. Right. So you can see the water storages. That's the polluted water exchanges right there. So if you go to the piping layer, there's a lot of bridge priorities going on there, and it's a little hard to follow, and I don't know that I could explain it without having control of the pointer arrow, but let's just say that this allows 2 full pipes of water coming up from the bottom of the map, such that the left pipe is always full, and the right pipe is filled up after the left pipe is full. And it all goes into the pipes that are actually consuming the water and then overflows into the storage, which then refills the pipes to make sure that they're always full.
That sounds about right. Nice work.
It's not a technically complicated build, but it's an exercise in pipe priority.
Nice. All right, we're gonna take a little break here. We're gonna do the stream captains real quick, guys. If you think there's more questions, we'll talk about it. And Kit, I'll be right back with you. Nice. Nathan had a question. Let's see here. What did we miss?
Do I use normal slicksters as
Surely
well?
you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
I actually don't use normal slicksters, which is not particularly efficient of me since my 77 natural gas generators produce quite a lot of CO2. But the reason I don't use normal slicksters is actually, it's hilarious to me anyway. It's because the amount of water that I'm consuming on this map means that I need to produce as much water as possible. And aside from geysers, the best way I have to produce water is by running the natural gas generators, which means that I actually need to use as much power as I can. So generally, if there's a choice between an efficient method of dealing with something that doesn't use power and an inefficient method that uses lots of power, I'm using the power-hungry method because I need to run those generators as often as possible so that I can get more water.
Nice.
It's not the model of efficiency type of map. It's a pushing the limits of what it can support.
Yeah. Moonlight768, thank you so much for that sub. 3 months, that's crazy. I really appreciate that. So tell us, I have some questions here on space. All right, so let's see if chat can figure this out. Now, first things first. Oh, actually, we'll do chat's questions first. Is the natural gas the only source of power that you're using?
It's not the only source, it's the primary source, but I am running 6 coal generators because I've got hatches making a lot of coal, so I might as well burn it. I'm also running, I don't even know how many turbines at this point. There's so many turbines on this map because they're cooling aquatuners. So I actually get quite a bit of power from the turbines, which I'll feed back into the grid. Aside from that, I think all the other power is from the natural gas.
Nice. How do you prioritize the natural gas for the water production?
It's just the smart batteries. Just tell it when to run. I can't actually prioritize it over the turbines because well, I mean, I guess I could try and store the turbine power in batteries, but eventually I'd still have to use it. So the turbines that I'm running do actually, it means they cut into my power production because if they weren't running, the natural gas generators would run more often. I'm also running the coal generators in priority over the natural gas generators just so that they actually burn the coal because my natural gas generators make more power than the base currently uses. So if I put them on top priority, none of the other generators would get their power used. So
yep.
I could actually make more water if I just threw a bunch of the power away into the ether, but I can't stand the thought of doing that.
Yeah, there are systems, Corny, where you can, like, depending on where you put the smart battery on what side of a transformer and things like that, you can basically let the steam turbines feed their power into the smart battery, and then if it falls below a certain level, because you need to keep the aquatuners running, you can activate the transformer so that it like backfills that power if it needs to, and then hopefully it would sustain itself. But there's usually some issues with that as well. I don't know. We've tried it and have had limited success on making a truly sustainable system there where it only pulls power off the grid unless it needs it. But that is a way to do it.
My ultimate fallback position if I really get starved for water is actually to switch the dupes onto eating meat because my farms are what take up most of the water that I'm using. So if I really got starved for it, I could shut down the farms and then just make them eat the massive piles of pacu filet and bull meat that I have rotting right now. So
nice. Yeah, I guess you can use lots of power of incubators to use all that power. Yeah, you can do that.
Yeah, I'm running, I think 8 of them for the poke shells and 8 for the hatches right now.
So tell us about your decisions in space. We have quite a few people here that have struggled breaking the space barrier. There was all kinds of different theories in it. I see some interesting choices that you've made here, which honestly, I don't think maybe I would have thought about it when I first started playing the game, but now I probably play a little too conservative when it comes to space. So explain a couple of things. One, why are you not putting bunker doors above your rocket bays, which is a very common pattern that a lot of people do, myself included at times. And then anything else? Like, what are these counters for that I see next to the space scanners? And I'll think of some more stuff along the way.
So the reason that there's no bunker doors across the top of the map is because the original purpose of this map was I wanted to have every inch of the surface launching rockets. And I didn't want to have to open and close the doors constantly to let the rockets out. I figured if I had that many rockets, they'd pretty much always going to be launching or returning. And it just seemed like a waste of effort to put bunker doors across the top of the map when they were almost constantly going to be open. So I instead of doing that, I did bunker tile along the bottom of space to protect the base. And then I just built the rockets on top of the bunker tile. Then after I decided that I wasn't going to have rockets across the top of the map, like completely everywhere, because 8 rockets can deplete everything. I decided I liked how it worked, and I didn't particularly feel like building the whole detection system. I've built the detection system before. I've built the digger system before, and I just wanted to do something different. So I tried this different system for automatically digging out the regolith, which I'm not going to pretend is efficient, but I had hydrogen to throw away. So what it does right now is all the regolith lands on top of the bunker doors. And then every 5 cycles, as long as there are no meteors coming, they open, all the regolith drops down, they close immediately, and then the diggers come online and start digging out the regolith. When the bunker doors are open, the diggers don't work, so they have to close it. And they're on the diggers are on the top so that they don't get entombed by the regolith. And it works reasonably well. When I first set it up, I had some problems with the automation where the doors would stay open when the meteors were coming down. But I think I've got that sorted. It's only been running with the new automation for about 50 cycles, so I can't guarantee it.
And then what happens to the regolith? Like, what are you doing with it?
The regolith gets collected by the dupes and thrown into a pit. If you scroll down a little bit, there's a pit just under the rocket fuel production room. Yeah, there it is. It's the pit with the petroleum in it. That's where all my regolith is, and there's actually an automation line feeding the regolith down to the boiler area, actually, where it's automatically feeding the water filters down there.
Nice. Now, Lewis, I do actually know that rockets are immune, but a lot of people, they want to save regolith or they want to do stuff with it. Like, how many discussions have we had where somebody's like, keep the regolith, feed it to voles, do something, you know, instead of just what we've been doing, which is deleting it. So, do you have a shove vole farm? That is Nolan's best primary meat factory.
I don't. Well, I have a lot of shove voles, but I'm not farming them right now. I am actually planning to farm them, and then I will have more meat to throw in my meat rotting hole. But I'm planning to farm them mostly to get rid of the regolith, not just because I want to use everything on the map. So not because I need voles. But if you actually go to my main base where everybody sleeps, the voles are trapped in a 2-tile room in the food storage area. Lewis Voles are actually meat times 10. They drop 10 kilograms of meat. And I think there's like, if you check the reports, it'll tell you how many voles there are, but I think there's 66 or so. I took a lot of eggs from the printing pod. They're all wild.
Right now we are running 4 vole pups. And I'm looking over the regular ones. Are they not in the list? That's weird.
They're under S.
Oh, shove voles. Yep, 66 at the moment. And we just had a birth. We have a 7th wild one. Alright. Why that tower of insulation? What is it made out of?
Tower of insulation is the relic of the water chimney that I built to vent an infinite storage into space.
That's right.
That is, yeah, there was a 3 tiles wide on both sides of the ladder, and the water. When I opened the infinite storage, the water shot all the way up the enormous pillar of insulated chimney and went into space and promptly glitched out and gave me as much water per tile as the game was capable of computing. I think it's 2 to the power of 32 water per tile. It was quite an impressive glitch. And space was not capable of deleting it fast enough to empty the storage. So I ended up having to build a door crushing system to delete the excess water.
I remember, I think we were streaming when you were building that, and it just sounded like such a weird problem. It's like, I have an infinite storage. It's actually on its own due to just the game producing extra fluid, is making extra fluid. And I need to delete it, and I have no way to delete it. And like this, just throwing it into space, it seemed like such a waste, I think, to everybody that was in that conversation. But you know what? I think it was a great solution to your problem. Minus Teach was asking, how are you going to utilize space with the DLC on multiple asteroids? Is this sustainable for the DLC?
I assume actually that I will have to restart with a new map when the DLC comes out, because the DLC is also going to have new biomes and new creatures and things, and you only get those when you create a new map. So if this map hasn't already ended by the time it comes out, it will be retired when the DLC releases, so that I can make a map with all the new stuff.
Yeah, I think that like anytime a major DLC has come out, it's almost an immediate start over. Plus, as I seem to recall, I'm pretty sure that the DLC is actually changing the base game as well. So I'm not sure how that's going to impact save files.
Sherman, I think I am collecting all the resources except there's a liquid geyser down in the oil biome that I think is liquid CO2 that I'm not currently using. Oh, and I have capped 2 leaky oil fissures, so they're opened and they're available for use, but I'm not currently using the oil because I have such an excess of oil to burn through already.
Can't you delete water by compressing it into one tile and then filling that one tile out with a solid? Yeah. Go ahead.
You can, but when it's in an infinite storage, it's the walls of the storage are 3 tiles thick on all sides, so you can't reach the tile that it's compressed into. It's I had to open the infinite storage in order to delete the water, which is where the challenge came from. And then once it was open, Oh,
we lost you.
No, I'm still here. It's building the tiles to delete the water, because of how the water was spread out at that point, would have actually been more difficult than building the doors.
Yeah, have you seen the wave machine somebody built? It was maybe like 2 years ago, I think now, maybe a year and a half ago on Discord. Somebody had made a wave machine with doors to basically move liquid across the entire bottom of a map. And the way that they solved that problem Well, the first thing that I thought was interesting is that they were basically making a set of doors that open and close to kind of like make a wave. That was the first thing. But the way that they did that was actually not through filter gates and buffer gates, like a lot of people do with things. They put a preset number of packets of multiple fluid types in the pipe, and then did sensors on the pipes to say like, hey, if it's this type of thing, open the door, and then it runs around. You know, it's hard to explain, but we might have to build one of these days. But that might have been another way to solve that problem, you know.
Moonlight, the reason I had to delete the water, there were two reasons. One was, at the time, I was hoping that the amount of water in the storages was contributing to my lag. On my computer, this file runs really, really slow. And I was hoping that if I deleted the excess mass, that it would run better. So that was reason number one for deleting it. Reason number two was that this was shortly after I decided I wanted to try and run all of the resources completely balanced, so the map using everything that was produced. And I felt that having one of the storages at the time had 67 million kilograms of water in it, and I felt like having that much water made the goal of balancing resources on the map meaningless. So I deleted it so that I could experience that challenge honestly.
Nice. Real-time Ben, do you run into a problem with the save file size when you get this far into the game? The actual file size itself? No, I mean, in general, the game does slow down. Like, we're going to see the autosave here in a second. It'll take probably 20 seconds on this computer to save the file. Hopefully, and it sounds like that they're working on it for the DLC, that a lot of these types of performance improvements around saving the file and things like that, it sounds like they're working on that. So let's, if I'm reading between the lines in the dev notes that they've been posting, it sounds like that's a topic of conversation, because we're going to be, the DLC is going to allow you to run multiple asteroids at the same time, so let's hope they solve it. Yeah, so like right now, it'll probably take about 20 seconds. And I'm running like a Ryzen 7 16 core machine, although the game only uses one, but still.
When the autosave happens on my computer, I get up and go make myself a snack.
Yeah. Lewis is asking, is your space museum complete?
It is probably not complete, and the reason it is not complete is because I don't have every planet type on my space map. I don't have a planet, I don't have a glimmering planet, so I can't get any of the objects that come from a glimmering planet. The lack of the glimmering planet is actually why I built my Abyssalite melter, so that I could get tungsten. Except I turned out not to need the Abyssalite melter, so while it is still built, it is not actually running.
Where is your Abyssalite melter?
It is underneath the rocket on the far right side.
Sure, man. We'll take a look at the O2 system. Well, we can explain that. That's
There's two different electrolyzer banks, so we could look at either one. Yeah, so there's that T-shaped bit of glass, and then the pool of liquid niobium underneath it is the Abyssalite melter.
So explain to people why you need to melt Abyssalite.
So if you spawn onto a map that has no wolframite, and then you go to space and you have no glimmering planet, that means that that map has no source of tungsten, which means that you can't build thermium. So if you want thermium, you have to have tungsten. And so if you need to get tungsten and you don't have any wolframite on your map and you don't have a glimmering planet to get it from space, what you do is you make insulation out of Abyssalite, and then you build non-insulated pipes out of insulation, and then you run liquid niobium through them and they melt, and when insulation melts, it melts into tungsten.
There you have it, guys. There's your answer. I want creepium thermium music play in the background. I know, right? All right, Sherman, you've never seen this O2 setup before. Go ahead, explain this one.
So this is my favorite way to do the submerged electrolyzer system. I like the hydrogen on the top and the oxygen on the bottom, because that way, if a dupe needs to run into the oxygen room to breathe, which does happen occasionally, especially up in space, the CO2 falls down and just goes into the pumps instead of spoiling the electrolyzers. And if they run into the hydrogen room, because it's hydrogen, they don't exhale, so there's never any CO2 in the hydrogen room. So I find this setup much safer. I know a lot of people like doing a vertical setup. I just find the horizontal setup easier to build. It also, in my builds, you may notice I have a really, really, really strong preference for building things in a way that at any time the dupes can go into the build to fix something or change something. I do not like building something that I have to seal it up, that the dupes can't access it afterwards.
Yeah.
So this setup is everything is accessible to the dupes.
Yeah, we've done both the vertical and the horizontal hydrogen systems, although I think most of the ones that we've been building have been set up in such a way that the oxygen is free flowing, because we don't want to like pump the oxygen. I mean, it's been something that's been like something I hate doing. Like if I'm building an oxygen system, unless I need to send it to an atmosuit or something like that, I don't really want to pump it unless I absolutely have to. So like that's usually like kind of like the baseline of like some of the decisions we've been making around using the submerged electrolyzer system. But this is actually really interesting because it protects you from a lot of the problems that we ran into when running a horizontal one, which is, if it's open to the rest of the world and some other gas gets in there, especially one that could be in between hydrogen and oxygen, you've got a real problem because it'll fill this tile and then tank the electrolyzer system.
Yeah, it's part of the reason I prefer to pump my my oxygen, and I do prefer to pump it. I've tried the free-flowing oxygen system and I didn't like it. And the reason I prefer to pump it is because it makes my base build much more flexible. The one time I built a free-flowing one, it really defined the shape of my base and where things went, and I didn't like that. I wanted to be able to rearrange my base more freely.
Yeah.
Also, I always end up needing to pump oxygen around anyway, so you might as well just pump it all.
I mean, that makes total sense, and that's exactly what I've been running into as well. It's like, well, if I'm going to try to make a free-flowing system, it's basically just this weird arm hanging off of the base that is doing something, and then you're constantly having to build around it or move it or something else. Yeah. Holy Rain is asking how the submerged electrolyzer system works.
All right, so the idea is that the electrolyzer checks its pressure based on the 4 tiles covering the electrolyzer itself, but it spawns the gases in the 2 tiles that are, you can see one is a mesh tile, and it spawns one gas there and it spawns the other gas in the tile that's open. You can put a mesh tile in the open tile. I just left it open because I actually needed to sweep some things out of the pits. But that's where the gases spawn. And if you just leave the air free flowing and don't control it in any way, then either gas can spawn in either location. What I did with this system was I built the system, I pumped it out to a vacuum, and then I put hydrogen in the top and oxygen in the bottom. And when you prime the 2 rooms like that, both gases need to spawn, but each gas now only has one valid location to spawn in. So the hydrogen always spawns in the upper tile because I put hydrogen in that tile, and the oxygen always spawns in the left tile because I put oxygen in that tile. And so because it's submerged and it doesn't overpressurize, it just fills that tile with oxygen continuously, and the gas pressure pushes it down into the rest of the room.
Yep. Yeah, and for those of you that are wondering, how do you make the electrolyzer not overpressurized? It involves stacking liquids, 2 different liquids on top of each other in order to get it to make this like water lock like this. So, and if the sum of these kilograms or grams of water exceeds the amount that takes it over. Oh god, somebody's incapacitated.
Oh, I know what that is. Don't worry, they'll be rescued. They've been hit by the poke shells. This happens periodically. So if you unpause, someone will run in there and grab them.
Poor Gene. Have some chat, guys. This base isn't sustainable, kid. We've lost a dupe.
Oh, they're not going to die. They always get rescued. I've never lost anyone to the poke shells. If it happens on your stream, I'm going to be real sad. Oh, see there, he's getting rescued.
Oh, it's too funny. Yeah, no, Holy Round, it's a great little build. We've built these in the past, and I think I think that I love them, first of all, because it takes all the pressure out of worrying about gas filtering, and just making a crap ton of oxygen. Like, I love it, you know what I mean? But I also feel like they are slightly overpowered. So I don't know if they'll change that dynamic in the future, but for right now, I think that they're pretty amazing. They do take a little practice getting used to. Be prepared to be frustrated, but once you figure it out, you can crank them out in no time.
I got that from the ONI database. It lists all the planets and what artifacts are available from each one. I mean, I might have them all. I haven't actually checked. I don't know. So
interesting. I wish there's a better way to making gas liquid storages.
Christo, if you want to see my liquid storages, I'm actually not using any infinite liquid storages anymore. There's one just underneath the O2 system. That's not sort of how I started building them standard, but it works. And then there's one, if you go north of the base, that's next to a water geyser that's similar, but it's a little more efficient. And it kind of surprised me because I thought I would need a lot more storages to store all the water from one activity cycle of that water geyser. But it turns out this was all I needed. It's, I think it's 16 or 18 water storages. And then when they're full, the water flows into the room that they're sitting in. And that is enough to store all of the output of that geyser's activity cycle.
Nice. I'm sure this depends a little bit based on what each geyser is putting out, but yeah. And we've been doing something, the hot potato map that we have going on right now. We have a similar storage system, actually. It's a slightly different shape, but yeah, that's pretty good. What are all the geysers, vents, volcanoes that you have on this map?
Off the top of my head, I know I have 2 leaky oil fissures that I'm not currently using. I have a water geyser. I actually have 2 water geysers, that one and then one down in the oil biome. I have a saltwater geyser. I have a chlorine vent. I have a cool steam vent. I have a polluted oxygen vent that's making clay for me. I have a carbon dioxide vent that is feeding a oxyfern farm, which is not currently working because the oxyferns are overpressurized. And what else do I have? And I have 2 hydrogen geysers, which are currently just pumping up into my rocket fuel storage.
Yeah, this is this is really nice to look at a base that's gotten like this far. I mean, I think the longest base I've really run is up to like around 2200 or something like that, I think. So this is really been quite refreshing. Well, that's about 30 minutes, Kit. I know that you have to run here. So are there any final questions for Kit before we let her go? I'll let them stack up in chat here real quick. I'm going to do the stream raiders. We'll give you a few minutes. My final questions for you, Kit. Looks like there's a couple of people here that think. So what are you going to do next with this map? Are you going to play it out until the DLC? Are you still trying to get it balanced? Do you feel that it's balanced? Is it where you want it?
No, it's not quite where I want it yet. It's I'm still working on figuring out the water balance. I recently turned base recycling back on, so I'm gonna have a lot less polluted water. So I need to play it for, I mean, it'll probably take me about 50 to 100 cycles to figure out whether or not that starves my farms or not, and how to flip back and forth of how much I'm recycling and how much I'm not. The other thing is that if I'm going to consume all the resources that are coming in on the map and use them for something, I need to build volt farms. So the next things on the to-do list are getting the oxyfern farm working properly because it's currently overpressurized, and probably building volt farms so that I can actually do something with the regolith. And I'll keep it until I run out of things to do. Basically, it's every time I think I might have run out of stuff to do on this map, I find something new. So
nice. That is an impressive amount of Paku, by the way.
Yeah, and the sad thing is that I actually would have more, except I had a significant Paku die-off about halfway through the map when I accidentally enclosed them in a room and they got cramped and stopped reproducing. So I lost about 200 Paku at that point.
I'm curious, why do you have this much space for all these Paku? Why not just isolate them down into like one tile?
They were actually originally in a tank to the left of the base, and I needed to move them. So I had to drop them downwards, and so I decided if I was going to drop them all the way down to underneath the base, that I would just build a giant tank onto the base and cover it in glass so that the decor from the Paku could come up through the glass. So they're basically down there as a giant decor bonus at the moment.
I only ask because I know that you're playing on a slightly slower computer. Like, I think if you minimize the amount of pathing that they can have, I think that you might get a little performance off this. But then again, it's a huge map.
The problem is that the only way to get them into a small tank at this point is to sweep the eggs, which with that number of Paku takes a couple hundred cycles. I mean, I guess 25 because they only have a 25 cycle lifespan, but you can't just build them into a smaller tank because it's impossible to not trap the Paku inside of a tile. So I'd have to build a tank and then sweep the eggs in there over time, and I just haven't wanted to do it.
Nice. Well, cool, guys. We'll chat. If you got nothing else, look at this beautiful petroleum boiler. It's a work of art.
Fremen, I know that critters slow down the game, and that if I killed them all, I would have a lot less. Like, it would probably run a lot better. But I need the critter eggs for the line. It's, I have around 600 critters on the map, and I still don't make enough lime.
That's impressive. That's a lot of lime. Well, cool, guys. Well, first, Kit, thank you so much for sharing this. This is wonderful. Please continue to send us updates in Discord and stuff. I'm sure people would be curious to hear what the progress is, and also, and this is up to you, if you want to share the save file so people can learn from it, it might be something that we can explore in the future.
Happy to do that, and thanks for letting me come on your stream and show off the base, and I'm pretty proud of it. So
yeah, this is very well done. Like you can tell, like everything has been pretty well like thought through. You know, so like you don't see them very often like that. What is your favorite critter of them all? Nathan Stark says. We got some fun questions coming in.
my favorite is definitely the Slickster. The Slickster, in theory, the Pip is more cat-like, but the Slicksters have always been the cats of Oni to me, so the Slicksters are my favorite. And I have to admit that since this map, I have developed a particular affection for the long-hair Slickster.
Nice. All right, Kit. Well, thank you so much. We're gonna like cut you loose, and yeah. Well, you'll be around chat, guys. Kit will be around in chat. You can keep asking questions, and let's go back to our Volcania map and try to avoid disaster there.